You're listening to the AstroMommy Daily Horoscope, a forecast that hopes to shine a light in the dark, helping us all see where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. Whether you're a first-time listener or a long-time subscriber, thanks for being here. I truly appreciate you being in the AstroMommy community. I hope you enjoyed today's horoscope and card reading. If you would like to support the AstroMommy Newsletter, there are several ways to do so. Subscribe on Substack, share it with a friend, schedule a reading, check out my family's Etsy shop, Metaphysical Flamingo, or just leave a tip. Without further ado, here is the Daily Horoscope. Pioneering, planning, and perceiving. Venus and Jupiter in Aries, Mercury and Saturn in Aquarius, Mercury entering Pisces, plus the Devil card. Just another day in paradise. Daily horoscope for Thursday, March 2nd, 2023. Good morning, friends. Well, my kids are all on the mend, and so far, the half of us who did not come down with the stomach flu are okay. Still crossing my fingers, but it's possible we made it through. Or this weekend will be kind of like a sequel to last weekend. Okay, let's get into the astrology. The moon today is in her home sign of Cancer still and is making her way from 13 degrees to 25 degrees. In that time, she will make several aspects, but the most notable in my opinion are a sextile to Uranus and Taurus early this morning at 5:02 a.m. Eastern Time, and then a trine to Neptune and Pisces at 11:23 p.m. Eastern Time. These two contacts are like bookends to the day. The first, the sextile to Uranus and Taurus, represents a desire for independence, a love of novelty, or something unexpected happening that is pleasant, favorable, and generally appreciated. And the last, the trine to Neptune and Pisces, symbolizes compassion, sensitivity, and a spiritual connection that flows easily and effortlessly through the medium of our intuition. Tomorrow, things get a bit harder because the moon will oppose Pluto, but we'll leave that for tomorrow. The transits of the moon are not the biggest fish we need to fry with today's horoscope. We have three really important things to talk about: Venus conjunct Jupiter in Aries, Mercury conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, and Mercury's ingress into Pisces. Venus conjunct Jupiter in Aries. Below is a fun little video I found on YouTube that shows the conjunction between Venus and Jupiter, as well as a few interesting facts about it in comparison to the great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn on the winter solstice of 2020. Check it out. Venus conjoined Jupiter in Aries half an hour after midnight last night, so you may have felt the effects of this transit yesterday. As of this morning, Venus has already separated by a degree and conjoined Chiron in Aries at 13 degrees, meaning that the good feelings of this transit may already be less noticeable or could be more focused on making amends, healing an inner wound, or forgiving someone. Nonetheless, we may still feel the effects of this transit into the weekend. Venus in Aries is an independent Venus whose love of freedom, authenticity, and tenacity drives her forth, fighting for what she believes in and conquering her enemies, her territory, and her emotions. Venus in Aries doesn't doubt herself, but rather takes initiative immediately, which sometimes can lead to impulsive, rash decisions. Aries is ruled by the planet Mars, the god of war, aggression, and action. So Venus in Aries is a fighter, representing the feminine warrior archetype that refuses to be enslaved by social norms or a patriarchal structure that doesn't honor and defend the goddess. Jupiter is the planet of abundance, wealth, prosperity, and big picture thinking. In Aries, Jupiter is outspoken, loud, and righteous, quickly expanding things, but sometimes when something expands too quickly, it can pop, right? Venus and Jupiter are both benefic planets that bring joy, peace, love, good health, and harmony to a situation. So when they come together, they may represent something joyous and wonderful, or health being restored, but there is also a downside. This conjunction could represent something getting too big too fast, an overinflated ego perhaps, or an over-optimistic outlook about something, and then when reality sinks in after the transit passes, people may feel a bit of a letdown, especially right now when the sun is in the dreamy, imaginative, idealistic sign of Pisces. With the moon in her home sign of Cancer, I do feel like Venus and Jupiter coming together could represent something joyous happening in your life in regards to love, health, relationships, wealth, fame, pleasures, and your environment. So all in all, I think this is a good thing and something to celebrate. Mercury conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. Let's move on to Mercury conjoining Saturn in Aquarius. This is a transit that could feel much more serious, heavy, and stoic. This transit becomes exact at 9:34 a.m. Eastern Time this morning. Mercury and Saturn together in any sign could bring out serious thoughts, careful planning, strategic consolidation, stoicism, committed writing, weighty conversations or messages, and pressure on the mind. In Aquarius, we may be concentrating on how we are utilizing our resources and making sure that everything and everyone is attended to. For myself, I have noticed this transit the most in my recent obsession with life insurance and retirement planning. I want to make sure that I purchase the right package that will serve my family's needs the best. This seems so Mercury-Saturn to me, carefully planning for my future and the future of my family. It's serious and takes research, attention to detail, and a stoic attitude. Since Mercury conjoins Saturn at the final degree of Aquarius, which is a very touchy degree in astrology that represents things feeling very pressurized this morning, and then Mercury enters Pisces tonight at 5:51 p.m. Eastern Time, this is another bookend situation. Mercury in Pisces is a very different feeling than Mercury in Aquarius. We could go from estate planning to daydreaming about going on a cruise. We could go from serious, heavy thoughts about our earthbound physical form and eventual mortality to imagining all sorts of otherworldly dimensions. It could be a real mind shift from this morning to the evening, and one that may be very noticeable, like going from a more conservative, closed perspective to a more wide-open, expanded point of view that includes everything. It could feel good and liberating, like being set free after feeling caged up, or it could feel very daunting, boundaryless, and vulnerable. Saturn in Pisces. Saturn is only 5 days away from making his ingress into Pisces, and I had an experience and some reflections on this shift that I wanted to share with you all. Last night, when I was drifting off to sleep, I saw the image of a coffee mug falling off a counter and landing in a bucket of water on the floor. And in my lucid state, I thought, that's like Saturn ingressing into Pisces. Reflecting on that image and that idea, I can see why I would think that. The mug was empty and therefore cold and hard. It was white with nothing on it, so purely utilitarian. Instead of the mug being filled with water, it was displacing the water, splashing some of it out of the bucket onto the floor. I think this is the most interesting part because we think of mugs being containers for liquids, and in this image in my mind, the mug's landing was cushioned by the water so that the mug didn't break, but the water was sent into a bit of a frenzied state, at first sloshing about, but after a while it would settle and hold the mug up so that it could float on the water, gently bobbing about. I think this may be what it will be like when Saturn enters Pisces. What's even more interesting is that you'd think that Saturn, being the planet of boundaries, would be providing the boundaries for the water by holding it inside. But in this image, the cup held space for the water, but the water did not go in the cup. And if it did, the cup would not be able to do what it was meant to do because there would be too much water and the mug would sink to the bottom of the bucket. Boundaries obsolete. Unless, of course, you remember that the bucket itself is also Saturn, providing another layer of boundaries. There is a happy medium where the mug could be filled partway with water, just enough so that it would be utilizing its natural gifts, but not enough to sink itself. The mug also represents something else that Saturn symbolizes, this idea of separation, because Saturn separates us from the part of the universe we can see with our naked eye and the part of the universe that is beyond our reach. So Saturn is the great divider, separating what is in from what is out. In my mug in the bucket of water image, if the mug is half filled with water, say, then it is separating the water within the mug from the water around the mug, dividing it, isolating it, and confining it. Without making big waves that would sink the mug, the water can't do anything to reclaim that part of itself that is cut off from the whole. Pisces is a water sign and represents emotions, spirituality, dreams, unconditional love, devotion, sacrifice, and fluid thoughts. Parts of ourselves we don't want to be separated from, but we also need to have healthy boundaries around. The next 2.5 years while Saturn is in Pisces will be a very interesting experience. Those are some of my thoughts. I would love to know if this image brings up any reflections for you, so please feel free to share. Let's move on to the card for the day. What is the guidance for today? 15, the Devil. On this card from the Motherpeace Tarot, we see a hierarchical structure of bondage and submission organizing the social order. At the top, you have the boss, and below him are the different levels of society that form the structure that supports him. The women are at the bottom. There are many disturbing images on this card, from the mother on the left sacrificing her baby to the soldiers on the right fighting the one who broke free from the chains. The Motherpeace Guidebook by Vicki Noble says, quote, "The clock at the top of the structure forms a backdrop for the enthroned male authority figure, the owner, the boss, or proprietor, as a sign of bondage to work. Everything is done for the personal gain of a few at the expense of the many. The mentality of the devil cuts itself off from others and says, me first, and anything to get to the top," unquote. The Devil card represents where we feel there are negative forces in our lives that are keeping us enslaved in some way and holding us back from manifesting our highest good. It represents where one is choosing instant gratification over long-term goal fulfillment. Addictions, the shadow self, attachment, restriction, and sexuality all come up with the Devil card. The devil is a trickster, and so there is also the feeling that you have been tricked into believing something about your reality that is an illusion. As the card for the day, I feel that this speaks to where in life we may be giving into immediate gratification or over-compromising our values too much in a way that feeds our shadow selves instead of our higher selves. With Venus conjoining Jupiter in Aries and this card coming up, I feel that this could be a reminder to be careful of overconsumption, being wasteful, or impulsive when it comes to self-fulfilling activities that may lead to regrets. With Mercury conjoining Saturn in Aquarius, I feel that this card symbolizes a reminder to look at the structure you have in your environment and ask yourself hard questions. Are you being selfish, cheap, or severely limiting with your thinking? Where can you open up to be more compassionate, selfless, and loving? It was so interesting when this card came up because I went back and looked at the last times this card has come up since I started writing the daily horoscope, and it showed up when either Venus and Pluto were making aspects or major transits were happening in Pisces. It's like the Pisces energy wants to escape so badly from reality that it's willing to chain itself to a life of servitude as long as it gets the pleasures it seeks. Escapism is a huge thing for Pisces. Often this represents escaping into earthly pleasures like drugs, sex, alcohol, spending money, etc., and other times it symbolizes an escape into spirituality or religion. Very interesting that this card came up so frequently with Pisces transits. Let me know if this reading resonates with you in the comments. I hope this is helpful. Until tomorrow, AstroMommy.
Thank you for reading or listening to the Daily Horoscope. Quick links and resources can be found at the bottom of the newsletter. Today's card was pulled from the Motherpeace Round Tarot and book set available on Amazon. If you purchase anything through the affiliate links that I provide in the newsletters, I will make a small commission, but there are no additional costs to you. I don't share or recommend things that I don't 100% believe in and use myself. Thanks for listening.